Eric, I find you to be really interesting because you own two companies. You own Meet Gabby and then Arrow Effect Marketing. Make sure I say that right. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
ARO or Arrow Effect Marketing.
Yep.
Um,
You got it.
so can you share the story of how you went from the one company to then seeing a gap in the market and starting the other company?
Yeah. So, with arrow effect, and you had it right there, it's actually kind of a fun fact. The arrow is actually my son's initials. And when I became an entrepreneur, I knew the tough road that was ahead, just through some of my friends and just, reading about just the world of entrepreneurship, that it was going to be one that's very easily one that you may want to avoid or try to quit. And so I knew by having those initials there were a great reminder to keep going, and I'm glad I did. So I started Arrow Effect Marketing. I've been doing it for well over a decade now, but I've always had, an itch for storytelling. And so what I found was, even when I was working in corporate or working with other law firms, I was constantly getting, approached to, whether it be at a conference or someone, grabbing me to the side saying, hey, what do you think about this? And I really loved the ability to tell those stories through advertising and marketing. So I started doing that. That then evolved into lead generation because, at the end of the day, that's what people want. They want good quality leads to help generate new business, right? And really how it paid from Arrow into Meet Gabby was when we were doing lead gen, we noticed very consistent issues with intake and reception. And I noticed this too from my world. I worked in-house at law firms for a number of years prior to going and doing my own thing full time. And that was that there was a lot of slow response times when leads would come in. There was a lot of issues with any call. Some firms just they don't have the personnel. It might have just been, things that were out of their control. And so fortunately, this came at a time where technology just was advancing rapidly. And so I became obsessed with this, this notion of voice technology and these AI agents. And we started rolling this out with an Arrow. So Meet Gabby really started off as kind of like an additional offering through our Arrow product, but we noticed the clients that were utilizing it were converting 20, 30% more cases, all because of the speed to lead. And so that's really the story of how, Meet Gabby started. And then from there, Meet Gabby just continued to grow through word of mouth, through, obviously the conference circuit, and brought us to where we're at today.
I'm always in situations like this. I'm more curious about like how you manage the two companies and really anything else because that can be the hard part. Because I mean, Arrow's your baby, right? And you don't want to neglect that. But which one gets more of your time? I wonder.
Oh, yeah. Well, the trick is, yeah, you try to sleep as much as you can, but I'm burning the midnight oil constantly. But without a doubt, Meet Gabby. That's the world I live in. So actually, what I did with Arrow is I had a great relationship with someone that was in the legal industry, knew legal advertising. Her name is Hope Wagner, and she came on and joined Arrow as the CEO to help run the day-to-day activities. And while I'm still involved, Hope is really the one leading the charge right now with Arrow, and she's doing a great job. We're continuing to innovate. But I put most of my time towards Meet Gabby because I love the world of innovation. I let our team focus on the products for today while I'm focused on the products for tomorrow. So Meet Gabby's definitely getting the majority of the time from me, but we've got a great team over at Arrow that's fortunately allowing me to do that.
Was it difficult to let go of the reins and let someone else take over Arrow?
Yeah, it was. It is tough, especially as you mentioned, it's your baby. So you get really nervous. Like if you're not touching everything, and having that, specific love, the TLC involved with every conversation, every piece of art or creatives that you're putting together. But I got to a point where it's just like you had no choice, right? I got to a point where I'm like, I can't, I'm only human. As much as like we like to think, oh, we can do it all. I fortunately came to the realization that I need some help. And again, just finding the right people and putting them in the right positions really has allowed me to focus on the things that I enjoy doing. So definitely, I've been through the ringer with trying to find, the right people to match the right roles, but I've been very fortunate, certainly at Arrow, that has allowed me to get Meet Gabby where it is today.
That's awesome. Now, I know that the legal space, it's been hard to find talent when it comes to hiring, and it seems like it's getting harder and harder. I wonder if you're having the same issue when it comes to like a legal adjacent space like that.
Yeah, it's so crazy. So I'll tell you this. So we just put out probably within the last month and a half, and we had over 600 submissions for different positions we were hiring for. But we were getting submissions from like people that were working at SpaceX, and I share that with you because I think the world that we're in, even though it is legal, I think this like agentic AI in this world, like people know this is where the future is, and they're interested in it. We only scratched the surface, I believe, with where this is going, and we're going to see a lot more of this in other industries. But the legal industry specifically for us, one of the things about Meet Gabbi is we at one point were thinking about doing healthcare. The intakes are while it's very different, they're very similar in the way they approach them. But we quickly realized there's a lot of hoops, in the healthcare world that, certainly we could have tackled, but we realized legal is where it's at. It's where the space that I'm comfortable with. I've been working in the legal industry for well over a decade, and it's a space we decided to stay in the lane to stay in and solve these issues. So
Why do you feel that the legal space is so safe?
actually, I wouldn't say safe. I feel it is safe. I feel like it's a good fit for us. I think for a couple of reasons. This is working in the legal industry. I can tell you from what I've seen that we're not always pioneers. The legal industry isn't exactly out there pioneering and adopting new technology rapidly, but for the first time, at least in my career, I'm seeing law firms interested in adopting quicker. They're recognizing that we got to make some change and adapt. And I just really enjoyed it. It's odd, but I come from a family that my uncle's a lawyer. I'm very close with him, and so I grew up in the space. Again, I took a weird pivot early on in my career where I just happened to find some marketing work, and I was working in-house as director of marketing at law firms. It's a space I felt very comfortable with. I've always enjoyed talking to lawyers because you're dealing with people that they're extremely smart, but they're extremely busy, and they love finding solutions like ones at Arrow with lead gen or ones at Meet Gabbi that help them save time and continue to generate revenue.
Yeah, the reason I was asking because I do think that there's a bit of a fence that we have. I think of all of the spaces that are being touched by AI, and I'm already on record of predicting there's going to be a bit of a contraction. I'm not a huge one. I do think there's going to be a contraction, but our roles are going to shift dramatically over the next decade,
Yeah.
dramatically. But it doesn't mean we're going to have less people or a lot less people. There's going to be less people. There's going to be people that are going to leave the legal space. But I think that there's a bit of a fence when it comes to the court system. So you have the court system. It is fenced off. The courts have been very resistant to AI, and rightfully so, because there's been a lot of cases that have been cited that are fake, that are hallucinated cases, not real cases. But I do think there's a bit of a fence, which does protect us a little bit. Now, my concern, and this is, I don't know if I've had a conversation about this on the show. This might freak out people. I know I've had this conversation outside of the show, but I'm kind of thinking about Neuralink, like something like Neuralink. And it's interesting because I was having this conversation with some attorneys after a depot, and they'd never heard of Neuralink. My client hadn't heard of Neuralink, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, think about this, like think about this scenario, and this kind of terrifies me, and I hadn't thought about it until recently. Where, imagine you're in court, right? You don't want Neuralink, you don't want this chip attached to your brain, but then you've got, and I'm just using Neuralink generally. I mean, there could be a
Yeah.
lot of different companies that pop up. But let's say you're arguing a motion, no Neuralink. The person next to you has Neuralink, has access to everything that they would need at their, just boom, thinking about it, boom. Maybe they've got some AI glasses or whatever where they got it on their screen or whatever. But that terrifies me a little bit because that now you're talking about a substantial shift
Oh yeah.
in in what we're doing inside the court system.
It is. That's really crazy, and it's scary. I mean, that think about how people are going to adopt that technology with Neuralink, and right now it's crazy to think about stuff. I mean, sometimes I have to stop and pinch myself when we're building these, or I'm like, I spend 10 hours a day talking to robots that know me by my name, that greet me. And I remember watching stuff like this, when I was younger, like the superhero movies with my son. I'm like, this is reality. Like I'm living in this every day. And yeah, even just the big shift I always talk about too, like, just coming from the world of social media advertising is, Mark Zuckerberg, he's definitely putting a lot of emphasis on the glasses and going all in, which I think we're going to see some really cool stuff. We actually are starting to, again, part of my innovation and thinking of what's coming tomorrow, we're trying to figure out ways we can actually adapt some of that, especially with helping with things like depositions, where you can, put on a pair of glasses and be transformed into, a space where you can build some comfort levels and, practice those, just depositions with maybe some younger attorneys. But yeah, certainly to your point, I mean, it shifts the balance. I mean, it gives a huge advantage, and we could run from it or, just try to, be in denial with AI. But I thought to myself the other day, going back, 5-10 years ago, working, some of the stuff that would take me weeks, I'm getting done in minutes. And I'm like, I couldn't imagine like if this just went away now, because I've become so dependent on AI as far as just my everyday, workload or helping to schedule things, keep things organized. And it's truly fantastic. I will say, from my perspective too, especially building Meet Gabbi, and there is a big misconception, I think, with just voice AI and like agentic AI, is that we're all trying to replace human jobs. I mean, in AI in general, it's inevitable. It's going to replace certain positions, but I can tell you, we built Meet Gabbi specifically to work in tandem with human personnel, and there still is a big need for that. But again, going off what you said, I think, there's definitely some scary times ahead when it comes to things like Neuralink and how that's going to shift the balance in the courtroom.
Yeah, I think with the AI, I don't think the reason why I don't think it's going to be a replacement. I think what it's going to do is it's going to get rid of the mundane stuff, and it's going to allow that to be AI to do all that, and then you shift the firms shift more into like that customer service focus where they can focus on the human part of it, the only thing that humans can do, and not the other part of it. But I guess the only but what I would have is, do you ever have conversations with ChatGPT or Grok or any of the other ones?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly things I'll go out to, like outside of, just, hey, how do I do this? How do I develop code for this? How would you approach this? I sometimes just go to it and be like, hey, I'm dealing with this issue. If you were, in this situation, how would you recommend? And it sometimes gives like recommendations. I'm like, this is pretty good. I try not to rely on, ChatGPT or Grok or any of these other ones as technically my therapy, because then my minutes would be astronomical. But yeah, no, it's again, it's scary. I have a app. We have like a personalized Gabby app on my phone where I can just click and she knows me and I can talk to her. And I try not to abuse that too much, just because I don't want to become too reliant. But yeah, it's definitely something that's become a daily part of my life.
Yeah, the conversations have gotten really good. Now, I don't. It's not at the point where it will, replace that human element, but it is one of those things where you could have, you even said she and her, like those, that's how you described it. I try to intentionally force myself to call it. That way I don't fall into that, because it is one of those things where it's scary good sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, it is. As far as, how I think you made a really good point, is I think people, it's those that are going to adapt, right? I think what I love and what I'm seeing in the AI space, it's forcing people to get more creative, right? We know it's there. We know everyone's, using it to some degree for the most part. If you're not, then, again, you're probably losing out. But it's something where I think, like, why I'm enjoying it is because creative folks like myself and just just creative people in general can really thrive in this space, because that's the one thing. I mean, as creative as AI can get, and it will continue to be, it's the people behind it. It's the prompts and how you can get creative, the way you're styling things that really make this, I think, this technology powerful. And I'm certainly having fun with it. It doesn't always go exactly how I want it to when I'm playing around, but I spend a lot of time in R&D with our good old Meet Gabbi.
Yeah, the thing about the creative, that point about that, it's really important. I can't remember the guy's name. There's a guy that does a lot on vibe coding. He's got a YouTube channel. He does these, he basically builds these companies live doing vibe coding, and I think it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Then he does these podcasts, but he was talking about like we're in this weird age where the creatives are the ones that have a lot more control because they can just pop the idea out of their head into an AI, and the AI can then build the thing that they're wanting, and that is pretty cool. Where it is, your point about creativity is well taken because we can get so creative, and that may be my favorite part about right now is just being able to take this idea, put it down, and then watch the AI build it is really just incredible. So I think you're right about that. I want to shift gears a little bit. We have a mutual friend, and he's an investor in Meet Gabbi, and Adam Rawson. So he invested, and
Yeah.
that's how we first learned about Meet Gabbi was through Adam, and I think that does give you some instant credibility in the legal space, knowing someone like Adam. Adam, I'd say is pretty influential. So I wonder how did that partnership come about?
Yeah, no, Adam's awesome. Him and along with Tom Tona from Tona Law, those two have become great strategic partners of ours. Actually, the way they came on board was they actually found like one of our ads and demoed us, and we came to find out that they demoed many other companies, and they said that they, liked us the best, and they were very interested in signing up. And as this conversations continued, for me, I come from the legal background. This wasn't something I just created and said, hey, let's go after lawyers, let's go after law firms. I knew how the space worked. I knew how to, especially coming from the marketing side, lawyers are getting inundated every single day with spam and solicitations on who the best, with the marketing, who the best, AI is. And they go with the ones they trust. It's a very, and as large of a community it is, it's actually a lot smaller than I think a lot of people realize. Word spreads very fast in this community. So I was very excited at the idea of having strategic partners like Adam and Tom join, because I knew that not only from an R&D perspective and getting advice, what do you think about this? How should we do this with your system, and can we then roll that out in our updated model? And also just having a product that we're trying to brand and just trying to promote as a product built for lawyers, vetted by lawyers. I think that you're absolutely right. I think our brand equity and just the trust goes way up. And I think with AI in general, there still is, while people are adopting, there's still a lot of distrust. Some of the common things we get, okay, I remember when we first started going around the conference circuit and promoting it, everyone loved it, but some of the feedback we got was, I think it'll be good in about a year. I don't think it's there yet. Or like the technology in general, I don't see it doing this or that. And even in that short period of time, 9 to 12 months, it's certainly beyond being there, but it's, again, it's something where having partnerships and having people like Adam and Tom on board, I think are going to just, build that credibility a bit more behind the product, because we know we can deliver on the product. I mean, that's something that we certainly put a lot of time and effort into. But I think having someone like Adam and Tom involved too, not only just from a trust and equity standpoint, but just also how can we continue to innovate? How can we continue to solve real world issues for real law firms? And they've been great at doing that.
Having that is really important. Having creative people like Tom and Adam are really important too, because they're open to changing things up, but they also will give you that connection to the legal space to kind of fill the gaps. And I know you've got the background where you were raised around lawyers and you've worked in law firms and all that, but it does give you that connection as a lawyer too, because I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but there's a company, and I don't know if the case management system is still around. I haven't heard about them in a while, but it was really interesting whenever I was talking to them about, like, they were basically saying, and I was talking to the CEO and their development people, oh, well, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to do it this way. And I'm like, your user interface is terrible. Like, I don't know how to use this because you don't understand the law. So they had all these things positioned in places that they shouldn't have been. And so they were just ignoring the way we practice law. And I find that really interesting. And I'm not surprised I've not really heard much about that company recently. My guess is they're probably gone. So have they been able to give you that sort of perspective? And I wonder if there's any specific thing you can think of where you maybe thought one thing and they're like, no, don't do it that way because that sucks. Have you had anything like that?
Yeah, well, I tell you, I did a test run the other day, and one of the newer features, we just launched a new voice model that we call Gabbi Emotion Plus. It's a great speech-to-speech model with our custom LLM technology, and it has the ability to select different accents. So we've nailed the Boston accent, the Southern accent, but according to them, the New York accent, they said, yeah, this is one it's definitely a New York accent, but not the one that's going to come off the right way. So no, they've been great, and especially with the pricing structure. As we continue, we have a great sales team that led by we actually were able to get a great sales lead there, and very seasoned in the world of entrepreneurship, and great with this technology. And just the way we're pricing and selling it and positioning it at the end of the day. I think Tom and Adam have been really crucial in explaining this is really what we want to see. I'm the type of guy when it comes to like sales or doing any of this, it's all about, again, storytelling, and how I try not to sell or position a product. And that's even with Arrow. The thing that I kind of fell out of love with for a while was how could we continue to become innovative? What made Arrow innovative for a while, at least up until now we've made a lot of adjustments, was Gabbi, was the AI infusion of that. But I think with Gabbi, again, with Adam and Tom, we've been able to push the envelope. They've been able to help position us in the way we're not only selling the product, but really what lawyers want to see. One of the things that I recognize too, and I know Tom and Adam attested to this as well, is when you're working with other softwares, like if you have a case management, we know how hard it is to get some of those stuff up and running. Technically, Meet Gabbi is more than just a voice AI system, and I think that's another big misconception. And our new model and the way our new brand positioning is, we're more than that. We're a lead management system. We can do X, Y, and Z, but we also didn't want to lose the fact that they may not want to just go and use our system and drop their other systems. And I'm a big proponent, why try to fix what's not broken? So for us, and even with the help of Adam and Tom, we're still working and playing well with other softwares, trying to ease that integration so whatever flows into our system can flow into others. And that's something that I think they've really promoted with us, and I think we're all on the same page with that.
You mentioned innovation, and that is something that I have observed just kind of casually over the years on the show, where I see these law firms and they will stick to kind of one thing, and then like a case management system is a great example, where you've got this case management system that they've been using for 2 decades. They should definitely get out of it because it's so old. It's like on an old server or something like that, and they just won't, because they're so stuck in their ways, and it's such an inefficient thing. And because it can be really hard to switch case management system, it's a painful thing. So I'm not trying to discount that part of it, but this is more about innovation. How can law firms make sure that they're focusing on innovating and making sure, and for not just for innovation's sake, but for actually improving the firm? So do you have any tips for how maybe you will do it? You maybe did it at Arrow, or maybe how you do it at Meet Gabbi, where you make sure that you're always innovating in a positive way?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way I approach innovation, it's probably, I don't know, I don't want to say unique, but let me put it this way. I'm not the type of guy that's always going out there and looking what others are doing. I think I'm pretty blessed in the sense that ideas come to my head, and as you mentioned, I thought it was a great point. I no longer have to just write it on pen or paper. I go and I just go. I think the biggest thing for innovation is action. Is taking action, doing something with that, right? Not just putting it, on the back burner and saying I'll come back to that. That's as I really boil it down, what it has helped me. If I have an idea, and not being afraid to fail. Not every idea is going to work, or if you innovate something, you might end up hitting a roadblock. I've put weeks into certain things, and I said, you know what, the hell with this. This isn't it, and I don't look at it. Sometimes I'm hard on myself, like I just wasted X amount of hours on trying to get this going. But I've now come to the point now where I don't look at that as a waste of time. That was great R&D. I realized what doesn't work. So, I guess if I had to pin down the advice from my perspective, it's really action and not looking at it in a way where you're afraid to waste your time, because these are things that even if it doesn't work out will still help develop a better model. We'll still help you in finding the right path that's going to lead to innovation. I think as it pertains to other softwares, though, and if I was in their position, there's a lot of great products out there. And, even with us, like, we're more than just voice AI. There's a lot of great voice AI. There's a lot of great, document AI companies out there. And, it's always great to see what's out there. I personally don't spend a lot of time out there always looking, hey, what are these guys doing? What are they doing? I try to just, really focus on our innovation. But I think in their case too, just kind of seeing what's out there, because I will tell you, I've seen some softwares and things we don't do, and I'm like, I had no idea that was out there. That's really cool. If I was a law firm, I'd be using that. So there's some really cool tools too, and I know I've promoted these on the podcast. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's sites out there that actually list, like, it's particularly in AI, the latest in AI based on like what your need is. So if it's like presentation building, it'll list ones by being free or paid, and I think those two can help spark some ideas and innovation in ways you can innovate for your firm.
Yeah, I've had to force myself to not try out as many tools anymore, because every week I was doing, and we have a live show that we do in the guild that we then turn into a Saturday podcast after a couple weeks, and that kind of forces me to test some more things, or at least look into them. But I've kind of forced myself to not test as much, and because it is one of those things where it is that shiny object syndrome that can be really, it's not a part of some integrated, well thought out plan. Whenever you do that, like when you start to implement something new, it's just something new. It doesn't mean it's part of some integrated plan, which can be difficult. You mentioned storytelling a couple of times, and I'm curious where that comes from, because you mentioned it whenever you were talking about Arrow and how you really like the storytelling. You mentioned the storytelling just not too long ago too. So I wonder where does the storytelling part come from?
Oh yeah, well, very specifically. I mean, when I studied film in college for a while. I'm a huge film buff. I actually, before I started doing all this, I was convinced when I graduated high school, going to college, I was going to be the next Steven Spielberg. I wanted to get into film. I actually did a lot of documentaries. That is what got me started in Arrow, because I was doing videos, and then at one point I got poached to do commercials, and I loved that portion of it because being forced to tell a story within 30 to 45 to 60 seconds, it was a challenge, but it was one that I really loved. I'm like, this is great. So I basically found a love for that storytelling through video and just that means of being able to connect with audiences and pull at the emotional cord. So for me, I kind of translated that over to on the advertising side, when we were doing creatives or doing different types of campaigns for them. I knew that storytelling was going to be the biggest piece. That's how you were going to stand out from the competition, because this is especially in the legal industry, you might see one person's ad the next and you could barely tell the difference between them. And the big key thing for us that I at least found success not only with clients we worked with, but certainly with my companies, is being able to tell that story.
I'm trying to find the name of this movie producer. I actually did a podcast episode about the structure of a good movie, and I'm drawing a blank on it. Gruber. I can't think of his name, first name, but last name's Gruber. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank on. But he talked about. I saw him speak, and then he. He's got a couple books and stuff, and so it's really interesting because he said, I'm going to ruin, whenever I saw him speak, he said, I'm going to ruin movies forever for you, or something like that, because he talks about how at the beginning of a movie, it's going to tell you how what the end is going to be. Mm-hmm. And if you look at all blockbuster movies, they follow the same formula. So it's really funny because he said it's always the opposite of how the movie starts. So, the beginning of the movie can be a little bit relative, but so if the person is down on their luck at the beginning, has no money, everything's terrible, at the end of the movie, it's going to be the complete opposite. And I will say that's a pretty damn accurate description of how movies go. So I do wonder if when you design things, do you use any sort of formula that is based on some of the things that you learned?
Yeah, I think It's funny because as I design things, again, as I used to do this for clients, or even as I'm doing them for promotional stuff for the companies, it's the cinematic approach that I always try to take. How can we tell that story in just a short period of time? It is harder when you only have, especially on social media. I mean, it's a different form of storytelling because you only have to stop the scroll, 5 seconds. So you got to be like right out of the gate, right? So the formula is really, that's pretty much like, how can we within the first 5 seconds be clear with what we do or why they should stop and listen, to something like that with us. But it's funny because as I'm telling you, I'm thinking in the back of my head just some recent movies I saw, and it's absolutely true. You obviously have outliers. Some of Tarantino's films are a little, wild with the way they start and finish. But it's funny too, just on a creative, and just as we're talking about cinema and the creativity, and as it relates to AI. So I know I shared this on a few other podcasts I've done, but one cool thing that I did, which was just out there, when I used to have some more spare time, me and my son we're all into like the superhero stuff. We both love movies, so we started to utilize and play around with some of the latest AI generated video things, where you can go on. And as someone that used to do film, I used to be on film sets, I used to direct short films. I can tell you the idea that I could go in there and prompt a scene and it generates in 5 minutes versus it would take me 2 days to shoot a scene that would look just like that is insane. So I found my obsession with that piece of that technology. And so we started doing like cinematic trailers. Next thing I know, I had like a small cult following, on YouTube from some of the cinematic trailers. Like we did one and it had, I think, I don't, he's like a big YouTube guru, but we had like over 50K like organic views on on one of our channels, and it's growing. I haven't even looked at it, but we started getting like followers and all this stuff. And my son tells me that I'm now monetized on YouTube.
Yeah, buddy.
The following. But my point is that, yeah, it's that the ability. I think the fact that we have all these. The way to answer your question that you asked earlier, how I approach it, I do think a lot about the tools I have in my resource too. That does make a big difference with what I'm doing. The world of just going to these stock photos or video sites where anyone can grab a photo of this. I'm thinking, how can I tell that story in this scene? How can I do that? And you also have to know, like, the medium. Is a still visual going to be your better, performer on this or that, or is it going to be video? We all know video is the best format for storytelling. And it's funny because Arrow, one of the new offerings, like, as I mentioned earlier, I found it in the company at one point. I was like, the thing that drove me crazy, what's unique about us? Like, what makes us different besides me? It can't just be about me. It's got to be, the product, the brand. And, again, we found that kind of temporarily with Meet Gabbi. That became its own thing. And so we spent a lot of time figuring out how we can make, Arrow innovative too. And one of the things that we recently launched was the ability for law firms to go in and generate commercials. We basically kind of utilize some of that technology. We tried to build our own, but to help them build storytelling components. So you can go on there, drop a photo of you and put yourself in a scene and generate that commercial. So that's something that's pretty cool that we're continuing to innovate and launch. But that's, these are the things that I enjoy doing. I want to spend my time, and that's what I realized over, certainly the last year, is I think that's where my time's best spent. How can we continue to be innovative and solve these issues through things that do storytelling and, solve real world problems that law firms are facing.
That's really cool. I've got a couple more questions, but will you tell people if they want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you? If they're interested in Arrow marketing or in Meet Gabbi, give the URLs to that as well.
Yeah, so for Arrow Effect, it's AROEFFECT.com, arroweffect.com. We've got our site there, and again, Hope Wagner, who's the CEO and running that show, she's fantastic and is ready to connect with anyone that's interested in anything, or just to have a chat about the latest and greatest in that world. And then for Meet Gabbi, we've got a site, actually a pretty new one that we just launched, which you could actually go and test out some of the new features, which is demo.meetgabbisales.com, and Gabbi's is Gabbi. So that'd be a great resource if you just want to play around with some pretty cool stuff. And anyone could reach out to me directly, Erik at meetgabbi.com, and I'm happy to connect and just chat. I'll tell you, I I love just doing things like this and just chatting about both these worlds. It's weird because I was just telling someone the other day, they're like, take some time off. You're burning the midnight oil. You're doing this, but I enjoy it. Like I genuinely, I feel really lucky because I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy the creativity, the innovation that comes with both of these products and brands, and it's doesn't mean I can't keep at the pace I'm going, but certainly I'm fortunate that I'm enjoying the time I'm spending in it.
And you'll have plenty of opportunities to do that out in Nashville at MaxwellCon because both Meet Gabby and Arrow are going to be out there as sponsors. So definitely appreciate you all doing that. I've got a couple more questions, and the first one is I wonder if you have any bold predictions for either the legal space or AI in general.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I think I'll just say this. I think glasses are going to be a big part of what we're going to see. And, we're already starting to do some R&D with some of that technology. There's a reason Mark Zuckerberg is shifting all his focus, and you always see him with those Ray-Ban glasses on anymore. I don't think it's going to adopt, right? People are going to think, but it's going to give us the ability to have more interactions, different types of interactions that aren't just audible, but they're more visual. I think we're going to see a lot more of the agentic AI start to be able to actually take more actions, than what we're seeing right now. But again, it's what's crazy about the space is I call them like the AI wars. I mean, they're all trying to compete, and we saw that big blitz where OpenAI was launching something. The next thing Grok was. Then you had Anthropic, coming out doing this. Same thing with Facebook. And what's great for folks like me and companies like mine is it's helping to give us some of the best resources we could ever ask for. And so I think this rapid innovation that's happening with some of the big players in the space are going to create just more products and possibilities for law firms, whether it be agentic AI or just tools and resources that'll make their lives easier.
Love it. I have the Meta glasses now. The new ones seem pretty awesome. What's really cool because I have the ones that are just the sunglasses, and I bought some transition lenses but they weren't very good. You can't buy any straight from a Ray-Ban, so you can't. But they don't sell just those lenses by themselves. You have to get them on Amazon, and they weren't very good. So I switched them back to the regular sunglasses. The AI is not super great, but I've watched some reviews of the new ones. It's really cool just because the amount that they can fit into it they didn't increase the size much at all. They increased it slightly, but the camera is fantastic on the one I have. It's really the video, the audio, everything, the picture if you just take a picture, really great. When I'm listening to them, when I'm listening to music or something or podcasts, it's really good. The battery life is not great, I would say that, but on the new ones, it's cool because you can see if you're looking at something in the lens, and even if let's say you're inside, so it's a clear lens, it's not the dark lens. You can't see on the other side. You can't see what the person's looking at. It is still you have zero idea that they're looking at something inside the lens. That part is really really cool. So I think you're right. I'm hoping that the AI is a little better than what it is now. I'm guessing it probably is, but unless it's using the same AI, then it's not. Because I do think that it is not nearly as good as some of the other ones for sure. But
he just had a demo fail. Mark Zuckerberg. They just did one with the glasses and it failed.
He did.
Happens. I mean, I just saw it. Yeah. He had one that they were trying to promote something, and the demo completely crashed. So I think they still have some work to do, but they'll figure it out. But the biggest thing is, I think, augmented reality with virtual reality with artificial intelligence. I think that those are the three things that are going to all merge to give us more of that immersive and interactive experience with AI that we're already seeing.
I was watching some of the top 10 tech fails of all time, and one of them was Microsoft's. Whenever they revealed the Surface, and the Surface wasn't working, so he was pretending like it was working, but it really wasn't working, and you could tell because he was showing the screen to the audience, and then when it stopped, it wasn't reading his finger when he was touching it, so he turned it away from the audience. It was pretending like it was working. It was cringeworthy. It was awful. So
fake it till you make it.
It's right. Well, sometimes it's one of those things. I have respect for those people. Like for example, whenever Musk went and they took that metal ball.
Yeah.
and they broke the win. I don't know. You've got to give them some credit for taking that risk. It's a
Yeah.
really risky thing to do. And hey, you win some, you lose some. Not a, and Steve Jobs even had he was legendary for having amazing reveals, but also he had some really big flops too. And that's just how it goes sometimes. It's just that's the
Yeah,
life
yeah.
we live in.
Hey, we've had plenty of ours early on too. So when you're doing live demos, fortunately we've remedied a lot of things since then. But it happens in the innovative space when you're revealing new stuff. Things there's things that happen that you don't account for, and do what you have to do. But it's fake it till you make it, right?
You got to
With the
fail fast and
circus.
keep moving. Fail fast, keep
Yeah.
moving. The last thing I want to ask you about is, I wonder, and you can't say Meet Gabby, you can't say Aero Marketing, right? What's one tool or strategy that you think every law firm owner should be using by the end of this year?
Um, well, this is probably pretty specific, but it's a tool that I don't think many people utilize, and it's going to be specific more to like social because obviously the world of legal, I've yet to meet a firm that's not doing some type of social presence or advertising. But I think one tool that's readily available is Facebook's ad library, where you could actually go on there and search for law firm ads or your competitor ads just to see what else is out there. And what I like to look at that too, because when you go down on that page, you can actually see if someone's been running, a certain ad for, let's say, 6 months, it's working for them and it's working for a reason. So it helps you, decide, because sometimes too, I found this, not only the most creative ad doesn't always win, right? And I share this too from many experiences, not only doing it for clients in the past, but certainly doing any ads for Meet Gabbi or promoting Aero. But I think tools like that I don't think, well, from my conversations, a lot of people are always utilizing, and they're free and they're just there, and it's not always heavily promoted. But again, it's Facebook ads library. You can go on there and see what's going on, and I think it gives you a good idea of what others are running, what's working, what types of creatives are out there, and it does spark ideas too. And I just share that because that's one that I just recently had a conversation with someone on. But as far as AI tools, I think I'm the same way. I think you said it perfectly earlier. I tend to jump from like different software sometimes because I'll see a new feature. I'm like, ooh, let me try that. But there's some really cool AI presentation tools out there anymore that are just fantastic that can help put together things. And I think, again, we use other tools too, like Runway, which is one of the tools that we're working with as far as generating video content and even visuals. That's one of the creme de la cremes of kind of that storytelling component, and that's another one that I really have enjoyed using, and I would highly recommend checking it out if you're lacking finding good creative where you can just prompt something and boom, it comes up.
When it comes to presentation software, Gamma app is really great if you're going to do like
Yeah.
slides. That's pretty nice. But the apparently Descript. So I pulled up Runway on my browser, and they're running an ad saying better than Runway. So Descript is saying that they're better than Runway. I doubt that,
Yeah.
but we shall
Yeah.
see. But Eric,
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to talk to you in Nashville. Thank you for being a sponsor. For anyone that wants to check you out, Meet Gabby and then also Aero Marketing. Check them out. Hopefully you will visit their sites and check them out. They're doing great things. So guild members are using them. Guild members are investors in the company. So hopefully you will check it out. But thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Awesome, Tyson. I appreciate it.